Title: I ignored my wife for one night after she betrayed me. Her reaction the next day shocked me. Rowena said she was going. That was it. No debate. No compromise. No pause to wonder if it mattered that her husband, the man who tied his soul to hers with a trembling hand, didn't want her to. It's just a party, Harlan, she said, standing in front of the mirror like her reflection owed her something. You don't have to look like I just committed treason. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor like it might provide an exit I could fall through. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't even remind her what I said last week, how I felt about him being there. Alden, the guy she swore was just a friend. The one who used to text her at midnight, just to check in. The one who lingered too long at dinner parties, made too many jokes about her being out of Harlan's league, and once, just once, called her sweetheart, while I was standing 6 feet away. I asked her not to go. Not as an ultimatum. As a man already on his knees. But she laughed. And went anyway. She wore red. Not just red. That red. The one I told her once, years ago, made it hard to breathe. She remembered. She always remembered things like that. She just didn't care anymore. She left at 8:43 p.m. Said she'd be back, late. Didn't kiss me goodbye. Just checked her lipstick in the rearview mirror and vanished into the night like a woman with nothing left to prove and no one left to disappoint. And I sat in the dark. I didn't text. Didn't call. Didn't even open our shared location app, even though it screamed at me from my home screen like a wound. I just shut down. Because if there's one thing I've learned about Rowena in 6 years of marriage, it's that the more you chase her, the faster she runs. So I did nothing. I made myself dinner I didn't eat. Fed the cat. Watched reruns of a sitcom we used to laugh at together. Every laugh track felt like mockery. By 1 a.m., she still hadn't come home. By 2 a.m., my phone was still silent. At 2:47 a.m., I fell asleep on the couch, still wearing my shoes. Not because I was waiting. Because I couldn't bring myself to go to bed alone again. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight and silence. The house was cold. The kind of cold that doesn't come from weather. The kind that creeps in when the person who warms a place up just isn't there. The bed was still made. No trace of her perfume in the air. Just the faintest whiff of cologne from my own skin. One I put on last night without knowing why, maybe hoping she'd notice. She didn't. She never came home. I stood in the hallway like a man who forgot where the walls were. Everything felt off-center. I checked the driveway. Her car wasn't there. No text. No call. Not even a passive-aggressive meme sent to say, I'm still alive, but I'm going to punish you for making me feel bad. I stared at my phone for a full minute. Then I texted. Did you make it home okay? No response. I made coffee I didn't drink. Watered the houseplants she said she'd take care of but never did. Tried not to think about where she might be, what she might have done, who she might have done it with. But you can't stop thoughts like that. They grow teeth. And mine have been sharpening for a long time. At 10:16 a.m., I got a call. Not from her. From Camille, Rowena's friend. The one who always said I was too mild for a woman like Ro, and sweet in a tragic way. The kind of friend who knew everything but never said anything helpful. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. And when it pinged, I opened it with shaking hands, like I already knew what flavor of hell was waiting for me. Hey, Harlan. I just wanted you to know that Rowena's fine. She crashed at my place last night. I think she just needed space. Don't be mad. It wasn't planned. Anyway, call me if you want. Or don't. Sorry. Sorry. That word. So small. So cowardly. She didn't even have the courage to tell me herself. She had someone else tell me she was safe. That she'd rather sleep somewhere else than come home to the man who held her through every panic attack, who stayed when she broke things, when she screamed, when she cried in the bathtub for reasons she couldn't name. I stared at the wall. Tried to cry. Nothing came. Only one sentence, echoing inside my chest like it had been written on my ribs. She didn't want to come home to me. I don't know what hurts more. That she went. That she stayed gone. Or that part of me still wanted her to walk through the door and lie straight to my face, just so I could believe it long enough to feel loved again. She came home at 11:09 a.m. I know because I watched the car pull into the driveway from the living room window like a man watching the beginning of a movie he already hates but can't stop himself from finishing. She didn't rush inside. Didn't look up at the house like it meant anything. Just sat in the car for a full minute, fixing her hair in the mirror, applying lip gloss like she was heading into something instead of crawling back out. I sat on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes. I didn't move. Didn't rehearse what to say. At some point, The things I wanted to say stopped sounding like sentences and more like static. She opened the door. No keys. She still had hers. Of course she did. I heard her heels click against the wood floors, confident, unapologetic. She smelled like someone else's cologne. Faint, but not subtle. Warm and musky. Not mine. She didn't even look guilty. Just tired. Like I was the exhausting part of her night. Morning, she said. That was it. Not sorry. Not, I shouldn't have gone. Not, I stayed with Camille because I knew if I looked you in the eyes, I'd see what I've done. Just morning. I looked at her for a long time. Not saying anything. Just seeing her. Not my wife. Not the woman I'd once written vows for with shaking hands and a racing heart. Just Rowena. A beautiful stranger wearing my ring. Did you have fun? I finally asked, voice hoarse, like I'd been screaming in a room only I was in. She shrugged. It was fine. Loud. Alden was there? She looked at me like I'd asked if water was wet. Obviously. That word hit me harder than anything she'd said the entire marriage. Obviously. Like of course he was there. Of course I knew. Of course it didn't matter. Of course I should have just accepted it. I stared at her. Hard. Waiting for the part where she explained. Defended. Lied badly. But she didn't. She sat down on the other end of the couch like it was any other day. Pulled her phone out. Started scrolling. My hands tightened into fists in my lap. I didn't text you because I knew you'd be like this, she added, without looking at me. You always get so dramatic. There it was. The script. Make me the emotional one. The clingy one. The guy who ruins everything by caring too much. She didn't even ask if I was okay. Didn't look at me once. I could have been bleeding out on the floor, and she would have stepped over me to get to her charger. I stood up. Slowly. Like my bones had gained weight overnight. She finally glanced up. Where are you going? To take a walk, I said. Since when do you take walks? Since I realized I need distance to hear myself think. She rolled her eyes. And I left. The air outside was sharp. Honest. For the first time in a long time, I felt awake. Like I'd been asleep for months, maybe years, and someone had finally turned off the sound machine. I walked for an hour. Nowhere in particular. Just away. I passed the coffee shop where we had our third date. It used to be our place. Now it just looked like a building where two different people once played at being happy. There was a family sitting at a table outside. Dad, Mom, kid with a juice box. The dad leaned over and kissed the mom's hand, and she smiled like she meant it. I didn't feel jealous. I felt grief, because I realized I had never had that. Not with Rowena. We had a version of it. An aesthetic. We had the photos, the social media captions, the dinner parties with carefully edited smiles. But we never had that. That soft, easy, mutual thing. We had performance. And I'd been paying for front row tickets with my dignity. When I came home, she was asleep. On the bed. Face down, fully dressed. I stood in the doorway for a while. Watched her breathe. Wondered if she even wanted me to stay anymore. Or if she just liked the way her name sounded next to mine on a tax return. She stirred. Rolled over. Saw me. "MH," she mumbled. "Where'd you go?" "Out." "Cool," she said, like she hadn't ghosted her own marriage the night before. Then she turned her back to me and went right back to sleep. I stood there a while longer. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I went to the guest room. Closed the door. Slept in a bed that didn't smell like her. That didn't remind me of the person I was trying so hard to be, someone worthy of a woman who never planned to stay. And I slept better than I had in a year. Because for the first time, I was finally learning what silence sounds like when it's not a punishment. It sounds like peace. I didn't go back to the bedroom. Not that night. Not the night after. Rowena noticed. Of course she did. But she didn't ask. Didn't text. Didn't knock on the door. She just let me vanish into the guest room like I was a disappointing thought she didn't want to finish. And weirdly, that hurt more than if she'd screamed. She didn't care enough to fight. It was always like that. She never fought for anything. Not for me. Not for us. Not even for her own honesty. She just drifted from excuse to excuse, from party to party, from man to man who she could charm, control, then discard once they stopped being shiny. I had been shiny once. Once. I started keeping a notebook. I don't know why. Maybe I needed a place to bleed that wasn't my chest. The first page was blank for 3 days. I'd stare at it every night, pen in hand, but nothing came. Then finally, on the 4th night, I wrote. I think I'm still waiting for her to be someone she never was. After that, it all came pouring out. Every page, another layer peeled back. The jokes I laughed at that made me feel small. The people she flirted with in front of me. The parties I was dragged to. The friends who looked at me like I was some invisible man she kept around for tax reasons and background noise. The time she said, "You should be grateful I'm still here." The way I was. The way I let her say it. One morning, I woke up in the guest room to the sound of her laughing on the phone. Loud. Carefree. The laugh she used to save for other people, never me. I walked out, made coffee, and she didn't even pause her conversation. She looked at me once, smirked, and said to whoever was on the line, "No, he's still here." Guest room. Classic. Classic. That word rang in my ears like a gunshot in a tunnel. I stood there, mug in hand, feeling like I was watching myself from outside my own skin. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a roommate with a shared mailbox. Later that day, I went into the attic. Not because I had a reason. Because I needed to see the wedding box. Yes, we had one. A stupid, fragile thing full of cards, Polaroids, the napkin from our rehearsal dinner, the dried-up boutonniere from my jacket. I hadn't touched it in years. I pulled it down, opened it, expected to cry. But I didn't. I just felt stupid. Like I'd spent years mourning a house that was built from cardboard and duct tape and calling it home. I took one photo out. Our wedding day. Her smile so bright it hurt. Me, in the background, already fading. I stared at it and whispered, "You were never mine. You just stood beside me long enough for the ink to dry." And then I put it back, closed the lid, and didn't take it down again. That night, something shifted. She came home late. Again. Not as late as the party night, but late enough that it was deliberate. She was testing me, waiting to see if I'd ask. I didn't. She walked past me in the hallway, dropped her keys with a clatter, and said, "You're acting like a child." I didn't stop walking. She tried again. "You sulk. You retreat. You think I'm the enemy just because I have a life." I stopped, turned to face her. She didn't expect that. "I don't think you're the enemy," I said. "Enemies care. They at least take a side. You're just a hurricane that pretends to be a summer breeze." She blinked. For the first time in a long time, she had no comeback. I kept going. "I begged for your attention. I asked for your honesty. I bit myself into 1,000 shapes trying to be what you wanted. But the truth is, Rowena, you never wanted anything. You just wanted more." "You're being cruel," she whispered. "No," I said. "This is me being awake." That night, I didn't sleep in the guest room. I didn't sleep in our bed either. I slept on the couch. Not because I was pushed there, but because I wanted to sit with the version of myself I used to be. The guy who cried on this couch when she said she might not love me anymore. The guy who waited up with takeout, hoping she'd come home early. The guy who thought being quiet meant being supportive. I sat with him until the sun came up. Then I stood and didn't look back. Something had broken. But it wasn't me this time. It was the rope I'd been tying around my own throat and calling commitment. And I was finally cutting it loose. You don't leave someone in a single moment. You leave them in fragments. In the pauses between fights, in the hollow after another lie, in the silence that keeps growing between the dinner table and the doorway. You start packing your bags emotionally long before you ever touch a zipper. That's what happened to me. I left Rowena in my mind before I ever touched the front door. And it started the night I realized I wasn't scared of her anymore. Not scared of her anger. Not scared of her disapproval. Not even scared of losing her. Because you can't lose someone who was never holding your hand in the first place. That week, I made a list. Not of what she did. I already had that list in my bones. This one was different. It was titled, "Who was I before her?" And the answers were embarrassingly small. I liked reading. I played guitar badly. I used to bake, especially when I was anxious. I had friends. Real ones. I ran, sometimes at night, just to hear my own breath. I liked solitude, not loneliness, but actual peace. Rowena had made all those things feel silly. Reading? Too passive. Guitar? You'll never be good enough for anyone to care. Baking? Kind of feminine. Harlan? Running? Creepy to do alone. Are you trying to get arrested? Friends? She called them emotionally codependent weirdos and said I'd thank her one day when I finally outgrew them. Solitude? She filled it. With noise. With chaos. With the kind of energy that never wanted peace because peace meant sitting still, and sitting still meant having to look at herself. So I started taking pieces of myself back. I ran that night. First time in over a year. Didn't even grab headphones. Just went. T-shirt. Old shoes. Breathing hard by the time I hit the corner. And I ran until my lungs ached. Until my legs wanted to collapse. And I felt good. I hadn't felt good in so long, I didn't recognize it at first. I thought maybe I was getting sick. Turns out I was just remembering what it meant to exist without bracing for impact. When I came back, she was on the couch, scrolling. Still in her day clothes, a glass of wine on the table. She looked at me, blinked. "You look like hell," she said. I nodded. "And still better than I felt living under your shadow." She laughed. Thought I was joking. I wasn't. She didn't ask where I'd been. She never did. That used to hurt. Now it just confirmed I wasn't imagining this. I really was married to a woman who knew everything about me and chose to forget it. The next day, I bought a bookshelf. Built it myself. It sounds dumb, but I hadn't assembled something for me in years. Everything in the house had been curated to match her. Her taste. Her colors. Her Instagram aesthetic. The bookshelf was black walnut. Industrial. Sharp. Didn't match anything else in the room. I put it right in the corner where her fake fiddle leaf fig used to stand. I filled it with books she said were too slow or too depressing. I bought candles that smelled like cedar and smoke. And when she came home and saw it, she paused. "What's that?" "A shelf. Looks out of place." "Yeah, I do too." And I walked away. A few days later, I got a text. From Eli, one of my old friends. He wrote, "Hey, I know we haven't talked since the wedding. Just wanted to say, if you ever want to grab a drink and remember what your laugh sounds like, I'm around." I stared at that message like it was a life raft. And I replied, "Tonight?" He said yes. And when I told Rowena, she blinked. "You're going out?" "Yeah." "With Eli? Didn't you two fall out?" "No. You made me fall out." Silence. "You're being dramatic." "No. I'm being honest. You just forgot what that sounds like." And I left. Just like that. No apology. No asking permission. I met Eli at a pub we used to love. We sat in the corner, ordered food we couldn't finish, and talked for 3 hours straight. He didn't ask me why I looked thinner. Didn't ask me why I kept wringing my hands. He just said, "You've been surviving. That's exhausting work." And I almost cried right there, over a half-eaten burger and cheap whiskey. That night, I came home late. Rowena was awake, waiting. She didn't say a word, just stared at me. I stared back. And in that moment, I saw it, the tiniest crack in her armor. She knew. She knew the spell was breaking. Not because I slammed a door, but because I stopped begging her to open it. I went to bed alone. Again. But for the first time. It didn't feel like punishment. It felt like a preview. Of freedom. I made eggs the morning I left. 2 scrambled, a slice of toast, black coffee. Nothing special. Nothing poetic. But it was the first meal in a long time that felt like it belonged to me. Rowena came into the kitchen barefoot, still half asleep, her hair pulled into a loose bun the way she always wore it when she was hungover or emotionally depleted. She looked at the plate in front of me. "You didn't make extra?" I didn't even pause. "No." She blinked, like the math wasn't mattering for her. And then she said it. "You're different lately." And I, holding a fork midair, finally said the thing I had rehearsed in my head 1,000 different ways. "I'm just being myself again." That silenced her. No snide remark. No sarcastic quip. Just the weight of a sentence that didn't leave room for denial. I packed quietly that afternoon. Not dramatically. No yelling. No storming out. Just folding what was mine into boxes. Old clothes. A few books. The guitar. A bottle of cologne I hadn't worn in years because she said it gave her migraines. I left behind the things that were never really mine anyway. The couch she picked. The dishes she insisted on. The curated Instagram marriage we never really lived inside. I left a note. It didn't say much. Just, "You knew this was coming. Take care of yourself." And then I walked out the front door. The key? I placed it on the counter. I didn't go far. Just across town. Found a small apartment above a bakery that smells like warm bread at 6 a.m. every day. The windows are old, and they whistle when it rains. But it's mine. Every sound in that place is mine. The bookshelf came with me. So did the notebooks. I started writing again. Real writing. Stories about men like me. Quiet men who were told their softness makes them weak, until they realize it's the only thing that ever made them human. Eli helped me move in. Brought beer, some terrible jazz vinyls, and said, "So this is the beginning?" I nodded. And he said, "You're gonna be okay." I believed him. For the first time in a very long time, I believed someone. Especially myself. Weeks passed. One evening, I was running again, longer this time. No music, just breathing, and I passed a bookstore I used to love. The lights were still on. Inside, I saw a woman standing at the counter, laughing with the clerk. She had a copy of East of Eden in one hand and a cup of something hot in the other. She looked up. Our eyes met. Just for a second. And we both smiled. Not that this is fate kind of smile. Not some movie moment with swelling music. Just a quiet recognition. Two people breathing in the same world. And it was enough. I went home, lit a candle, wrote a page in my notebook that said, I didn't need to destroy her to be free of her. I just had to stop holding the door open for someone who was already walking away. Then I turned out the light and slept in peace, in my own bed, in a home where every single thing in the room reminded me of me. Not what I lost, but what I finally found. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to help this video reach more viewers. See you in the next one.